Okay, my friends, what's up? What's up? What's up? Cinephiles, all my favorite Brian Knows Movies supporters. Uh, Welcome back to See It, a show about movies and stuff. This is episode 24, and what a weekend we've had in movies, particularly this crazy box office, this um, basically setting the box office record for this year with Barbie and Oppenheimer, and then of course the other films that have been out. I'm so excited to get into those. For the show today, we're going to, of course, break down the box office and see, how our favorite films did, and if we got some possible um, movies that are going to be bombs. And one of them that I think is going to be a bomb is really sad. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Then I'm going to give you my thoughts on Barbie and Oppenheimer. And then finish it up with maybe, if we have some time, a trailer reaction. New trailer dropped just today. So anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. I want to talk first about this crazy, crazy box office that we just had. So I will first start with admitting that I was wrong. One of friends of the show, Michael, told me that Barbie was going to be the movie of the summer and was going to do big business. I didn't believe it because of the way that the box office has been trending the past couple of weeks. And with it having to compete with Oppenheimer, I thought both of those movies would suffer. I don't think I've ever been as wrong as I was about that on this show. So they did a really smart thing when Barbie and Oppenheimer kind of pivoted to this Barbenheimer double feature type of collaborative promotion for both of these movies. Yes, they had their separate promotions and everything, but the premieres were the same day, just a few hours away from each other. They attended each other's premieres. They were promoting both movies. Hey, go see them both this weekend, and it worked. It worked. Barbie made more money as opening weekend than any other film this year, with $162 million domestic box office. That's more than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That's more than Guardians of the Galaxy. That's more than a lot of movies that we've seen in quite some time. A huge opening for them, just for the domestic. For the worldwide, they've got $356 million worldwide. The budget was $145 million. So the movie has basically already gotten into the green in its first week. And I think it's going to continue to do numbers for at least another 3 to 4 weeks out because, like I said last week, this is really the climax of the summer. There's not really a lot of big budget, big name type of movies coming out that's going to be as big as Barbie has been. So $162 million domestically, $356 million worldwide. There is no reason why Barbie cannot make 900 to $1 billion this summer. I don't think that there's any reason why it can't, especially if it continues to do good overseas numbers as well. So Barbie took the world by storm. I know you guys saw all the social media of your friends, and now people not even trying to be influencers, just going to the movies, having fun with all their pink on, guys and women and men, which I thought was pretty cool. Oppenheimer was actually the movie I thought would be the bomb of the summer. It made $82 million its first weekend. That's crazy for a 3-hour movie that really doesn't have a lot of appeal outside the United States just because of the stakes involved with it. It did very well domestically and worldwide. $82 million, $180 million worldwide off of a $100 million budget. It'll definitely be in the green within the next week or so. It will be a very successful movie as well. I mean, so we have these movies were so different. So to see these, and I think that the crowds that went and saw them were virtually the same. I don't think there's that many people who went and saw Oppenheimer that didn't see Barbie as a double feature. I would love to see some numbers on that. I'm hoping that somebody's doing some research and that maybe we get an article or two about how the joint marketing of this worked and how many people went. I know I've seen some demographics. I know that more men went to go see Oppenheimer and more women went to go see Barbie, which is, I guess, understandable. But it wasn't that big of a gap. Like it was like 60% or 65% each way, depending on the movie. So pretty good. Sound of Freedom. Now, I had to take a sip of my coffee to make sure I don't say anything crazy about this film. Well, let me not say crazy, but it's hard not to rail against this film because it's made so much money. Sound of Freedom, I think this is its third week out. It has made globally, well, it's only been released in the US, so domestic and global box office are the same, $124 million. You know how much this movie cost to make? $14.5 million to make. This movie has made gobs and gobs of money. You don't normally see any type of return on films like this outside of horror movies or Tyler Perry Medea movies. Those are really the only ones that you see. And to have, and it's not so much about the religious aspect that bothers me because I think that there can be movies that have religious themes or religious undertones, and there's definitely a community for that. In fact, I think that's what a lot of Tyler Perry movies have gotten a lot of its popularity from. But the fact that this is supported by QAnon or has QAnon adjacent type of theories. There's a QAnon person that's the main character in the playing the main character in the movie. There's been a lot of talk by people who are professionals and experts in child trafficking, talking about how dangerous the themes and the way they go about this movie actually is, how it looks nothing like what child trafficking, sex trafficking looks like in the real life, because it makes it seem like there's this big bad that's almost like a Taken, which Taken was a fiction movie, but a Taken type of situation, and that's just not the case. And so it's dangerous for a movie to make this much money because what I know is that it empowers more of these super problematic films to be made in the future and get screens in the future, because if they're making the theaters money, they're going to continue to put them in the theaters. I don't know why there's this huge belief that there is a crushing of Sound of Freedom in the box office. It beat Mission Impossible on its second. This is Mission Impossible second weekend, and it beat Mission Impossible. So nobody's trying to silence in terms of the availability of this film, Sound of Freedom. If journalists and critics and the industry doesn't want to talk about it because it's problematic, I understand that, and I think that that's fair. I think that's part of free speech, but it's got its followers regardless, and it's going to be a problem moving forward. I have my first comment. Please know the comments are open. Please feel free to comment. I'll address them live. Mike comes and rubs again. I already gave you a shout out, Mike, but he said Barbie is the movie of the summer. I've been thinking about Barbie a little bit in terms of where it ranks for my favorite movie of the summer, and I will actually get into that when I actually do my review of it here in just a few moments. But if somebody said that Barbie's the movie of the summer, if it continues to have legs over the next 3 or 4 weeks, which I believe it will, just because once again, there's not a lot coming out that I think is going to have the type of appeal. There's going to be argument to say that Barbie's the movie of the summer. But Mission Impossible is going to be a dud. We're in our second week. We have made $370 million worldwide. The domestics at $118 million. The budget is $291 million, which means this movie needs to make about $600 to $700 million to break even. Because usually it's a double to 2.5 the amount of revenue needed to start to get into profit territory. Just bad timing all around. I feel like if it would have came out a week earlier, we could have got a little bit box office, but it just got absolutely lambasted by Barbie and Oppenheimer, and then even Sound of Freedom beating it. That, as a Mission Impossible fan of the series, man, that hurts my heart. And I'm really hoping that it may be one of those long-term games where we can get like a Man Called Otto thing, where it just ends up making $1 gazillion just because it continues to hover on. But we will see. It's going to be even more difficult to see it in an IMAX screen or a Prime or a Dolby theater this weekend, because we have Disney's Haunted Mansion coming out, and that's going to take even more screens away from Mission Impossible, especially if Mission Impossible is not performing the way that they wanted to. So, I'm continue to keep my eye on that. Keep you guys informed. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's at our number 5 spot. It's made $335 million this summer off of a $294 million budget. So this is going to be a bomb as well, because Indiana Jones has been out for a while now, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to clear the threshold to be in the green. Insidious the Red Door don't have that problem though. $16.5 million budget, and it's already made $155 million worldwide. They take our number 6 spot. Horror is just such a safe bet. It should always get coverage for being a safe bet. I don't know why we don't get more horror movies because of that, but yeah, Mikhail Regular says, yeah, man, what's the hype with Barbie? Well, here's a little teaser for the review that's going to come here in the next 5 minutes. I think Barbie's the funniest movie I've seen this year. And I've seen practically everything. I haven't seen everything, but I've seen practically everything. I looked at my letterbox the other day. I think about 66, 67 theatrical movies in this year. Now, that's not counting the movies that have come on streaming. So I've seen a lot of stuff in the theater. I thought Joyride had its funny parts. No Hard Feelings had its funny parts. The Blackening had its funny parts. So on and so forth. But Barbie is just a treat. It's a joy. Elemental's doing okay. Elemental, $200 million budget, $358 million worldwide. It has the possibility of getting into the green. Spider-Man, I thought Spider-Man actually made more money than what it's made. It's a little bit under $700 million at this point, even though it's been in the top 10 for U.S. markets for pretty much since it came out. But it hasn't done the numbers I thought it would overseas. So I don't know if that's about. Transformers is doing great. It's made a profit, $427 million revenue off a $200 million budget. And then No Hard Feelings is made $82 million off a $45 million budget. I don't know why their budget is so big. Maybe it's Jennifer Lawrence's purse, her fee. It's probably a big part of that. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into, you know what? I was going to do Oppenheimer first, but we've got people interested in Barbie. So let's talk about Barbie. I think that, first of all, if you haven't seen the trailers, Barbie is about Barbie. Barbie lives in Barbie land, where all the Barbies that you can think of from all the different types, from the physicist to the teacher to the president to, whatever you could think of. Also, all the other characters in Barbie land, the Kens, the ones that have been discontinued, like the Allens and the Midgets and all those, they are at Barbie Land too. Well, anyway, stereotypical Barbie, which is your main Barbie, played by Margot Robbie. Stuff starts to go weird with her body. She's like, what's going on? I've lost the arch to my heel. I'm starting to develop cellulite. I woke up with morning breath. What is going on? All these things, like she's losing her magic and she doesn't know what's going on. So she decides to travel to the real world and meet her owner that plays, that's been playing with her all this time. And because something is connected in terms of the way that she's feeling and what's happening to her and what's happening in the real world. So you're on this adventure with Margot Robbie as well as Ryan Gosling, who plays Ken. He tags along to figure out what's going on with Barbie and get her back to living the life that she wants to live. There's a lot more to it than that, but I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it. But I will tell you this, there are so many themes going on in this film. It definitely calls out toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. In fact, there's a whole bit about the patriarchy that's a long-standing theme throughout the whole film, that they do it in a very, very funny way. You laugh at the silliness of how society works. It's a critique of society. It also critiques Barbie, what Barbie believes they do, what Barbie believes it is in terms of being empowering for young girls to be construction workers or mermaids or whatever they want to be, because there's so many Barbies that they play with that do these things, to the actual truth that there's an issue with body image and there's a shallowness to the doll. So you see all these aspects to it. It talks about corporate greed, and the thing is, to be so heavily themed and heavy-handed thematically with controversial things that probably shouldn't be controversial, but they are topics, but make it as funny as they did was a real success of this film. Greta Gerwig is one of my favorite writers slash directors. I loved Lady Bird and pretty much any project she's done. Noam Baumbach, she's her writing partner, and he's done, I think White Noise is probably the most recent thing he's done, which was on Netflix, but he's done a bunch of things I like too. He tends to collaborate with Adam Driver a lot. Both of them really put something together here, and the characters that show up are not just Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling being funny, and they're not known as being comedy actors, right? But they're funny, but also Issa Rae is hilarious. Or some similar, Lewis hilarious. You can name anybody in here. They all. There's no Will Ferrell's funny. There's no person who is not pulling their weight in the comedy, but also they're not trying to steal the show either. It just works so well. The production, I think that this movie is good enough to be nominated as a Best Picture nominee at the end of the year. They expanded the number of films that can be considered for Best Picture from to 8 to 10, so that we can get box office successes like this into the nomination category for the Academy Awards. I can see it's definitely going to be nominated Golden Globe for comedy, but I can see this and Spider-Man being nominated this year. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, animated film, and then also Barbie as like this really mainstream comedy. Of course, we're going to have, I'm going to talk about Oppenheimer here in a little bit too, but of course, you're going to have Napoleons and Dune Part 2 and so many other films as well that you would already know it's going to be there. But Barbie can make it's that good. The production design of this is impeccable. It's incredible. The costume design, the performances, the editing, the writing, all those are really something that are award worthy. We got another comment in the chat. LOL, not gonna lie, that does sound pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to check it out now. I'm telling you, man, I'm giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. The only reason it's not a 5-star film is because I do think that there's things that happen in this film that they could have cut out just to save some time. Will Ferrell should have probably never left the corporate boardroom where you see him in the trailer, but he's out and about just kind of being a silly, stupid CEO, and he's very funny doing it, but it doesn't really add anything to the story, really. I also think that there are some gags at the end that kind of keeps us from getting to our conclusion I don't want to speed to the conclusion, but it seemed like it kind of hampered it a bit. These are very minor complaints. Not everything can be 5 stars, but it is definitely one of the best movies of the year, one of the best movies I've seen this year. Definitely check out Barbie because it is incredible. I hope I haven't overhyped it for people who haven't watched it. I do have some friends who just thought it was so-so, but for the most part, everybody I've heard from are saying this is the movie that you need to see. This is the movie of the summer. Isn't that right, Mike? Oppenheimer, on the other hand, is a film that is completely in the other direction. It has a lot of themes and discussion points about society as well, but it's a serious biopic that follows J. Robert Oppenheimer's life, particularly him in the university, all the way to him taking over the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos to develop the atom bomb, the bomb that was going to be used in World War II. So you have Cillian Murphy, you got Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr. is probably your second lead here, or your third lead. Florence Pugh is in the movie. Christopher Nolan is beloved for movies like Memento and Inception and the Dark Knight trilogy. I think that he's been trying to be a lot more out of the box, especially with his previous film Tenet. He also had a great a war movie, Dunkirk, just a few years before Tenet, and I think that what we're seeing is a lot of Nolanisms in this. First of all, this isn't a original story that he wrote. He adapted a screenplay from a book called. Let me make sure I give you the full name of the book, just in case you want to read it. It's called American Prometheus: The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. It's by Martin Sherwin, J. Sherwin, and so I'm assuming that the movie covers pretty much everything in the book, most things in the book, in dramatic fashion. Um, what it does is it plays off of that theme of Prometheus. Prometheus, the way the allegory is written, is that he's this Greek god who stole fire from Olympus and gave it to man. And he gave this special element to man, which will help them cook, warm his home, and all these things. But it also was used as a tool of war. So it was a great tool that can be manipulated by man. And the gods were upset that he did this, and he ended up getting punished by basically having his guts ate every day, his liver ate every day, and then it would grow back, so that it can be ate. It was chained up and it's real gruesome. Anyway, and that's what it's talking about here. It's like you have these scientists that have this desire to do something that's never been done before. Nuclear fission has been achieved. Can we do it at a level that's going to be able to create tremendous power? And in this case, tremendous power for a bomb. This is right when World War II was going on. Oppenheimer, who was a Jew and also spent a lot of time in Europe, knew that they were already trying to do this as well. The Germans were trying to do this as well. And he I don't know if America's ready for a power of this magnitude, but I know the Germans can't have it. So we have to beat the Germans. So they're rushing to create a place for scientists to live, breathe, eat, sleep, and make this bomb. And that's what a big part of the movie is about. But there's more to it than that. And it's talking about a lot of what the military does with the atom bomb, and was it the right choice or not? Should they have even used it? I mean, the Germans had already surrendered. We were just fought in Japan, and Japan was about to fall as well. They were pretty much out of resources. We were going to target civilian sites, which, as you know now, because of the United Nations that came out of World War II, that's a war crime. You don't do that. It doesn't stop what the science tells us is that it doesn't stop nations from wanting to fight. It doesn't take their will to fight away. If anything, it empowers them to continue to fight on. And so it's the hubris of man to use this weapon, knowing the impact that it was going to have. That's really what it's about. And the guilt and shame that Oppenheimer and other scientists feel after the weapon is launched. And then from there, the Red Scare and who's a communist and how did the Russians get the information to be able to make their own bomb, because they do, and all the stuff in history that we know about, right? And what struck me that was the most powerful part of the story was how the scientists knew what was going to happen when they were making it. They made it out of fear of the Germans, but they were petitioning the government not to ever use this weapon. Well, do you know what governments do? Especially a warring government like America. I mean, we've been in a war every 10 years since the founding of this country, right? Is it every 10 or 15 years we've been in war, right? So that's what we do. And yet they did it anyway, right? It's this complicated morality of where, there's an evil that's present in the world that's very clear to see, but also have we turned a blind eye to the possible ill moralities that we have at home, right? And the military is also involved in how icky they get in terms of just really wanting to set this thing off. And Truman is not any saint here. They really showcase all of these things. Real quick in the comments, we're talking about Oppenheimer. Mike says I think The Prestige is his best film. The Prestige is very good. I wouldn't have any problem with that take. I would say that yeah. I mean, I would say Prestige or Memento or Prestige, Memento, the Inception would be up there for me too. Um, I didn't really care for Interstellar, The Dark Knight, of course. So yeah, he has a lot of movies that are kind of all at the same level for me. So anyway, movie's beautifully shot. It's shot in the 70 millimeter. The actual seeing it in an IMAX screen really does enhance the sense of atmosphere and environment within this movie, especially because of a lot of the techniques that they use in this film. Like there is a lot of this film that's in full color, and it's coming from the perspective. Usually, when it's in full color, it's coming from the perspective of Oppenheimer himself, and it plays into these themes about how the world is not black and white. There's a lot of nuance to it, and his belief system. Even though he's not a communist, he calls himself a Roosevelt Democrat, New Deal Democrat. But he's open to the ideas of socialism and communism, and allow space for those conversations to happen, which is problematic. Um, but then it goes into these black and white spots as well. That's coming from other perspectives. That's really interesting. It's non-linear, but it's probably, which Nolan does a lot, but they do it in the probably the best way in this film. And I know, like you talked about Prestige earlier, I think that it's handled the best in this film, the way that he's able to cut back and forth in his non-linear fashion of storytelling. Very interesting. It looks great. The production is design is great in this movie as well. I'm pretty sure Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. are both going to be nominated for Oscars. I have not seen a lot of the kind of festival type films that you'll see in the fall yet, but there really hasn't been any great performances in my opinion. There's been good performances, but no real great performances coming from men the first half of this year. The closest thing I could think of that could be possibly in the mix, and I don't think it will be, would be Creed with Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors. And that was back in March. But nothing else really stands out to me until Oppenheimer came. Cillian Murphy is great. Robert Downey Jr. probably gives his best performance in years. So they'll both be up. You have a lot of people coming into this film that are people that you know, and I don't want to spoil them when they show up because they kind of just pop in. They're not cameos, but they feel like that, and they're giving great. Like, so there's great performances, there's great direction, there's great writing, but I gotta admit, I'm underwhelmed by Oppenheimer for one reason, and that is the process of the way that the script came together and some of the decisions that they made during shooting. It's interesting to me that Christopher Nolan, one of his weaknesses is to me, and to a lot of people, is the way that he handles female characters in his story. Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh are pretty underdeveloped in this film. They don't really get a lot of time to cook. Their actual stories are really, they're almost like they're just as props for Oppenheimer, which maybe that's the way the Oppenheimer viewed. He was a notorious womanizer, right? But they didn't really explore that, and instead of exploring Oppenheimer's, they they do it somewhat, but you spend a lot more time exploring the flaws in these women as opposed to the flaws of Oppenheimer, particularly his way of womanizing and cheating on his wife and those type of things. You don't really get into that nearly as much as how flawed and mentally unstable Florence Pugh's character is, to how mean and there's like a non-femininity coming out of Emily Blunt's character, who ends up playing his wife. I don't like any of that stuff, and it's just handled so bad. I feel like that there was a space to really give us something interesting and add something to that dynamic of this unexpected hero, if you will, or the anti-hero. I don't even know what you want to call him at this point, and the issues with his own morality. There was a good place to explore it. They didn't do it. And then also, I don't know how you can have a movie about the atom bomb and don't have any Japanese people in this film whatsoever. And there was a place in the film, there's a couple places in the film where Oppenheimer sees in these visions the effect of nuclear war. He sees people's faces basically getting burnt off and experiencing the war, but they're all white faces. They're all faces he knows. Even after, and I don't think it's a spoiler because we know that this happens. I mean, you know that we bombed Japan with the nuclear bomb. They never change. So it's like the only humanity that matters in this story is white humanity as opposed to world humanity, and it's such a easy fix to make this movie much more inclusive and much more honest about what the effect of particularly these governments, these world powers fighting amongst each other, what it does to the world. Also, the displacement of Native Americans, they're fleetingly discussed in the movie. There's like some throwaway lines, but they could have showed in the montages them building Los Alamos, them forcing these Native Americans off their land, and how they poisoned the land afterwards. They could have mentioned those things. Movies are about showing and not telling. They could have showed those things, and they didn't. So even with so many great things going on with this movie, I have to give this a 4. It's a 4 out of 5. I know I just kind of railed against it. You thought I was leaning between 3.5 and 4. I think that visually and there's just so many things that kind of overpower this movie. It could have been a classic for me though if they would have did what they were supposed to do. We got a comment from J.R. Sexavana. I legitimately have never heard of this. Oppenheimer has been being promoted. They had a countdown for the Oppenheimer that started last summer, and it's been hyped up quite a bit. But you know, that's the thing about the way that films are promoted now, since there's no real cable TV where you're going to see trailers happen on TV all the time, right? If it doesn't hit your algorithms on social media, there is a possibility, or if you don't go to the movies a lot, there's a possibility you may have not heard of some of these big films that are coming out. I know some people don't even know Blue Beetle's coming out, and that's a huge DC film that's coming out in a couple of weeks, and nobody knows about DC or Blue Beetle or Gran Turismo or The Last Voyage of the Demeter. These are movies that would have been in the zeitgeist just a decade ago, just because of the way that we consume media. Anyway, but Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan, if you like Batman, the Batman films, and you like the way that he shoots, his sound mixing is a lot better in this. I don't think I had as many issues hearing the dialogue in this film as I have in other films in the theater, which Tenet was the worst. And that's probably the thing that annoyed me the worst about that film. But you can actually hear the dialogue in this film, which is nice. Oppenheimer, 4 out of 5. Both of these movies, Barbie and Oppenheimer, are definitely ones I would recommend to see in theaters. Barbie is a much more easier film to get. It's only 2 hours as opposed to Oppenheimer's 3-hour runtime. Yeah, and J.R. Saxophonic agrees with me about everything, so I'm right about everything. No, he says, right, I've seen content creators talk about it, but I was like, how have I missed this? Are you going to review They Clone Tyrone? I'm going to be writing a review on They Clone Tyrone sometime this week and putting it on my website, brianknowsmovies.com, so be looking out for that. I actually, believe it or not, have not had time to see it. It's on Netflix right now. I was hoping to see it this weekend. I just haven't had a chance to see it. So once I see it, I'm going to write up something about it, more than likely. Almost guarantee I'll have something out by Thursday or Friday on They Clone Tyrone. But continue to keep your eyes out on brianknowsmovies.com. I think the written word is really important with film criticism. So I'm going to continue to contribute there. So we do have a little bit of time left before I have to go. There is a new trailer that just dropped, and it's a film that's a continuation of my favorite horror movie of all time. The Exorcist. This is The Exorcist Believer. It's going to take place immediately after the events of The Exorcist. So it's basically retconning Exorcist 2, Exorcist 3, Exorcist Dominion, all those films, and it's Exorcist 1 and 2, and that's it. Exorcist 1 and this one, that's it. This is done by David Gordon Green. David Gordon Green is the one that just did the Halloween trilogy that just came out the last few years. Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, and I can't remember the other Halloween, whatever the other name of the Halloween movie was. But those were very mixed for me. So let's check this out.
Good day. Hey, be home by dinner.
I love you. Good morning, Mr. Fielding.
Morning, Catherine.
And here are your daughters, Angela and Catherine. It's about 7 hours ago, and that's the last information we have.
Catherine!
Angela?
If you can hear this, we love you. Please come home.
Hey, you found her? What are you and Catherine doing out there in those woods?
You were just walking and walking. That's all I remember.
Angela, can you tell your dad how long you were gone?
A few hours.
Baby, you've been gone 3 days.
Okay, so something got at the woods. What were they doing out there?
What'd you say?
I didn't say nothing.
Thought I heard you say something.
Hey, baby. You okay?
Wherever those girls went, they brought something back with them.
The body and the blood of Jesus Christ.
Body in the blood? Body in the blood?
Catherine,
Body in the blood. The body in the blood. The body in the blood.
Catherine,
The body in the blood. The body in the blood.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Mommy?
No, but there are people out there who have.
Was it 2 demons or is it 1 demon?
You
I think they try to do the
Possession.
boy.
Yes, more than I'd like.
Love that she's back.
I believe you can help get our girls back.
Exorcism is a ritual. Every culture, every religion, they all use different methods. It's going to take all of them.
Don't be scared,
We've met before.
Mother.
What did you do?
Is that Catherine's heartbeat?
They're beating in sync.
God played a trick on you.
Okay. I make sure my mic is back on. I'm sorry. I think that I have mixed reactions to this. So there's a couple things I'm excited about. Of course, Ellen Bernstein, who played the mother in the first one, Chris, she's back. That's cool. That's cool. I think that the idea that there might be a different demon or 2 different types of demons, or that Pazuzu, who was the original demon, is possessing 2 different girls. I think that that's interesting. I think that the makeup that they've done is very much a homage to the original makeup in the first movie. I think they tried to get the voices down as well. There was callbacks to like the dogs fighting, which happened in the Middle East in the first film as well, and it was like this violence type of thing. There's a lot of things that remind me of The Exorcist. It feels very Exorcist-y. But in also saying that, it looks a little corny too. And so David Gordon Green, there were some big swings and there were some big hits in those Halloween movies, and there was some misses, and the misses were very big. And I just don't want this to be a lot more those big misses and those big makes. So we will see. I'm cautiously optimistic about it, but there are some corny levels to this film that I don't really like. Also, Mike was on my podcast a month ago, and I talked about how if you're going to continue to move this subgenre forward in terms of exorcisms, you have to start to look outside of Catholicism in terms of, one, how do these demons possess people, but also how do you exorcise them? And the fact that Chris, Ellen Burstyn's character, says that different religions have different ways of exorcising demons, and you're going to need all of them. That makes me think that they're going to be introducing the way that the Jews would deal with the exorcism, and the way that Muslims would deal with the exorcism, and maybe even other faith-based places, Buddhism, and so forth. So that's probably the most interesting part of this trailer. Anyway, I'm excited about it, but I'm also a little bit tepid on it as well. J.R. Sexavana says that's intense. Courtney Franklin says nope. Mike Davis said, I saw it earlier today. I'll wait for your review before I see it. And so some people says that trailer was scary. That trailer wasn't scary to me. It was intense, but it was something that was much more. I can't find the words with it. It makes me reminisce about the original film, but I don't know if it also sets up an impossible expectation for this to be on that same level. Again, David Gordon Green, he's a great filmmaker. He just takes big swings, and sometimes he makes it, sometimes he misses it. So that's it for today. I'm going to have to head on out of here a little bit early today. But thank you so much for you guys joining me. It's always fun to talk movies with you guys. Thank you. And I will see you at the theaters next week.